Hey, hey, Blue Table fans! There you go. That's your max enthusiasm. My energy is different nowadays. You know, you go back to the old videos and you see me at like age 35 when I have like color to my hair and I'm like, I'm wearing Hawaiian shirts and stuff. I'm like, who is that guy? I feel like the same. No, I don't feel like the same person. So I did this ramble, sort of a 2019 retrospective, and I didn't finish it because the battery ran out. Of course, I don't edit things. You know, I'm just doing what I'm doing and hope people like it. And guess what? That's worked out pretty well. I've become interested in bedrock, which is if you live your life, or excuse me, if I live my life in a natural sort of way without trying to make any sort of unusual efforts, well, what happens then? And it was a great experiment, and it was very painful too, but only painful because I was holding on to old things. And I've become more aware of that nowadays. It's like, oh, so a lot of times I'm recounting the past, usually in a good way, but I'm still sort of like there. And it's like, no, Sean, you got to talk about the present, maybe talk about the future. And so that's the change that I've been making in my life, lo these many years. So I was doing a ramble, and then I don't even remember what I was talking about. So I'm just going to continue the theme of 2019 retrospective. January 1st has come and gone. January 1st is the birthday of Blue Table Painting. January 1st, 2004. And for those of you, oh yeah, here I am recounting the past again. So it's been 16 years, and the company right now is, I think in many ways, in most ways, the strongest that it's ever been because of my business model. My business model is really good. Like, guys, I was paying attention that whole time, and I'm running things now in a way that's it's just spectacular. And it's good for the clients too. And it really makes me happy. And every once in a while I have someone like, hey Sean, why don't you branch out and do these things and show up at conventions or whatever. I'm like, I don't need to do that. And it doesn't sound like fun. And I've already done that. No slight to conventions. I mean, I'm sure they're amazing, and there may come a time when I'm ready to get out there again. But not get out there to flail my arms and promote this thing. It's like, you know what? This is what it is. And that's worked out. It's worked out well. Like, I have my client list, and I have people that just keep coming back, and it's starting to slowly, it's like solidifying. And that's what I do. Just so you know, I don't just, I don't just sort of fly by the seat of my pants. I am carefully and consistently strengthening the position of the studio in every single way. Get better artists, make my current artists better, and just slowly making it stronger and stronger and stronger. And I definitely have a vision of how I want to go forward. If 2020 is a bang-up year, I'll have basically completed what I want to do in this coming year. Like, I'll have the studio and the footing that I want to have it on, which is really strong. And maybe in my next update, I'll sort of show you around the studio, because you can see how things are going by the stacks of bins. So a lot of bins can be good because a lot of orders are in, but a lot of bins can be bad because that may mean that there's like a backlog. So there's a bit of a log jam with the artists actually getting things done. And right now, by the way, you should make an order because the turnaround is white hot. It's really amazing. And that's been my dream and goal for a while, is to have a structure that's so good that a box comes in and then the models are being worked on almost immediately within just a few days. And that's more or less what's happening right now. If there's larger projects that are older, well, guess what? I have manpower assigned to those. They're either being worked on actively or they're going to be worked on actively really soon. And current projects that are coming in, like right now, if somebody just sent like a lower level project, like, 100 orcs or D&D figures or whatever, I could have somebody working on them basically immediately. And that's awesome. Bear in mind, this is recorded, check the date, see if you're watching this like 2 years later. Ask me what it's like 2 years from now. So it's been really good. 2019 was definitely a really good year for me personally. And so, got my Aries cup. The Ram. Don't go around your problems. Just bust through. If you just go at it hard enough, it'll solve. So, let's see here. Last night I was going over these old videos that I took, like as far back as 2011, family videos, and I was just like, wow, that's amazing. How much things have changed. Like, let's see, 2011 would be 8 years ago. So my now 18-year-old son was 10, just like this 10-year-old, wide-eyed 10-year-old kid, and it's been really amazing. Like when I see people who are like they're not having a family, that's kind of a lifestyle choice I think you see more often nowadays, and I'm just like, I get that, and but it's been an indispensable. What's the word I'm looking for? It's been an amazing journey to have my kids, and then of course I have a fifth child through my new spouse. So, and just to catch you up with that, because I was talking about that and I think I sort of got interrupted. So I met my, who's now my wife, like really close to after my divorce in what was it? Like pretty much at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And so I met her like right away. I'm in no condition to be in a relationship. So I had sort of a weird experience because when Luli, that's her name, and if you're welcome to be friends with me on Facebook, just look me up, and then you can see pictures of all these human beings. So Luli was 36, I think at the time, just about to turn 30. No, that's not true. Yeah, 36, about to turn 37. And so that's pretty young, really. And of course, I look at a woman, now I'm 50, if I look at a woman who's 32, and she seems like super, super young. And so we met then, and then she was, she wants to have a child. That's was kind of her thing. And, I really had to look inside myself. And I knew that I felt like I had more kids coming. And so I was like, well, sometimes things come to you in their own timing. And that's especially true of children. Like children, those little human souls, they've got their timing for things. And so I said yes. And so we were co-parents while I was also figuring myself out. And I dated a lot. In the course of 4 years, I went on 115 first dates. And that was, I gotta tell you, that's not for everybody. But it was for me because my personality type is I love other humans, and I really sort of dug into it. I was on date like 45, and I was just like, oh, maybe I should count these, because some people are like, oh, you counted your dates, what do you do? Is that gross? But then I thought, well, would you rather be forgotten completely? It's like, well, no, not that either. So anyway, so I started counting about 45, and then when I got to 85, I was just exhausted because, for me it's not like, if I meet someone, like I consider that may form into a real relationship. And there's a lot of emotional, like, that's what I'm looking for, like emotional, like just getting roughed up to form a relationship and then it falls apart. Form another relationship, then it falls apart. And I think most people kind of, just get beat up by that pretty quick, and just finding one person and sort of, cementing the deal sounds like awesome. And fast forward to now, of course, I'm married. I think it is August, September, October. Yeah, I'm coming up on 6 months now. Wow, that went fast. There's definitely a comfort zone thing to it. And so anyway, at date 85, I was just like, this does not sound like fun anymore. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the women who I went out with, and there's nothing wrong with having relationships or romances or flings or whatever. It was just that I was getting sort of worn down by it. Me, this guy who's enthusiastic and introspective. But then I was like, well, you know what? That's when it hit me. I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to go to 100 to say that I did it. And so then it was like, still the same rules. Like, I have a rule that I won't lead a woman along. If I'll only continue the relationship if I think something really can come of it. And of course you might ask, like, well, what about Luli this whole time? And of course I would see her almost every day because we have a child together. How much support does a woman need when she has a young child? She needs a lot of support. And so, but that's a story for another time. So anyway, I got to 100 dates, and I actually, at the time, I had a hot bartender as a roommate. And we would talk now and again. Of course, if you are sharing a home with somebody, you see them. And we talk now and again about what I was doing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm at date 99. I'm going to go to date 100, but I want to do it with somebody special. And she was like, hey, take me. And there was no romance brewing there. This was strictly academic. But of course, she was very outgoing, great personality, and she definitely dressed up very nicely for that 100th date. And I gave her sort of a behind-the-scenes tour of how I would go about a first date, what my protocols were, what my rules for myself were, and it was really neat. I think it was very illustrative. So I had my 100th first date. It's the weekend, a Sunday night. It's dark, and it was late winter 2019, so early 2019. And I was driving home alone on the freeway, and I was like, sort of taking stock of myself. I went on 100 first dates. And I just, like, this overwhelming, I thought it'd be a feeling of accomplishment, but this overwhelming feeling of grief and despair overtook me. And I started just weeping. Like, I was crying so hard that I had to pull over to the side of the road because I couldn't see, because of the tears. Because you'd think by 100, I would have found my person. And I hadn't. And again, you might say, well, what about Luli? Well, this is all retrospect. And people change, too. Luli and I have gone on a journey where both of us have we've grown. We've matured as human beings. And that happens over the course of 4 or 5 years. So I pull over to the side of the road, and it was just brutal. I just went home, and I was just sad. And so, of course, I got over myself pretty quickly. Ground out another 15. I know, that sounds negative. I don't mean it that way. I always had standards for this activity. Because to go on a first date, listen, I don't know how people are doing it in their 20s now. But I was in my 40s and sort of had a formulation. And I was also dating, on average, women who were right around age 42. And so, by the way, youngest, 20. That was quite an experience. And if I ever, talk about this more, I'll definitely include that. And oldest, 64. So that was kind of like the age range. But generally, people seek out their own, like a sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for? An age-appropriate person. And of course, I have lots of comments about that, because when I talk about dating, it's like, oh, women this, women that, and it sounds like possibly sexist, like generalizations. But guess what? When you're a man, you're dating, if you're a man of my type, I guess, you're dating women, and so that's sort of your frame of reference. And if you're doing it in your 40s, the women are typically in their 40s, then you're going to have a different sort of experience. But I did notice that women in their 20s, as a general rule, not always, are kind of in a certain stage in their life. Same with 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And of course, I married right after my 50th birthday, and it just felt right. And really something like, by the way, hear this little popping noise? It's because I'm playing with the pop cap on my phone. That's that noise. So anyway, where was I? So anyway, it was really an amazing human experience. I doubt many people have done that. Like, if you lined up, 100 guys chosen at random, how many first dates have they gone on lifetime? Probably not 100. And for me, I gotta tell you, it was really an amazing human experience. I really could write a book about it. Now, I got a lot of amazing insights on human relationships, and I'm definitely a better man for it. And part of the reason for that is what I call the solve, or solving the demon puzzle box. My dance partner would talk to me about this. I had by the way, 2018, I did ballroom dance, and I had a non-romantic dance partner who was this gorgeous 26-year-old, and she, of course, was having her experiences, and we would talk a lot about it. She would ask, she'd be like, am I doing the wrong thing here? Or, what do you think? Like, what's going on in this guy's head? And I actually had a lot of insights to it. So my experience led me to a point where when I'm with Luli, I never look past her. Like, I never go, oh, what about her? What about her? What about her? So I've already solved that. Like, I already know what that looks like. Well, what about her? Guess what? She's a human. She has all her imperfections, and you're either going to have a very shallow relationship and it's going to come to an end, or you're going to have a profound relationship. And to have that profound relationship, you've got to spend a lot of time on it. It is an investment to have a real relationship, and it takes time. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes commitment. And that's just a choice, And early on, I discovered, that if I had two romances going on at the same time, that's split energy. Like that, you can't really pay attention to both things very well, and never mind if it's more than that number. And so with Luli, my experience over those 4.5 years, it got me to a point where I solved it. Like, I was like, awesome, the merry-go-round is amazing. There's lots of pretty ponies. They go up and down, round and round, and there's lots of pretty lights and music. But, there's a point to, at least for me, where I was ready to get off of that carousel. Like, I understood it. Like, I finally sort of solved it, and I was like, oh, okay. And I had to ask myself, what would it take for me to be with not just one person at a time, but have a partner, and then another partner, and then another partner? because you can still be monogamous that way, or what I would call not monogamous but concentrated that way, focused, to just have that one person. And I'm not saying that's the way to go. There's no preachments intended here. Where am I? 20 minutes? Okay, great. I'm going to stop this one and start it again, because the camera will actually split them, and then I got an edit and have a weird trail, or like a video that's like 2 minutes long.